of academic integrity. So I've called upon Umair as the first presenter. Umair, you are now at the Department of Pharmacy. You have done your Pharma D and also clinical pharmacy from the University of Malaysia. You are very strong, prolific researcher and with publications in reputable journals. And I was very excited to see that you are a motivational, you could think of yourself as a motivational speaker too. So we're very happy to have you. So over to you, Umair.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Zia, for having me. And I will like to begin directly with the real classroom moment that I actually had experienced during my clinical pharmacy sessions. So this I come from a very specialized department where we take our academics more seriously because we are a health department directly concerned with the patient scenarios. So here I'm going to dive into the experience that I had. So So this is a real classroom moment. Actually, I was having a clinical pharmacy lab sessions in recently with my ninth semester students, and I have assigned them a hypertension case study that they were supposed to solve on their own. Students used AI to generate full treatment plans, and the answers looked excellent. The reasoning was the only thing that was missing. Everything was perfect. Their pharmacotherapy planning was perfect. Their answers looked very, complete, and everything looked perfect. But the only thing that I felt was missing was the reasoning. So that actually, when I really asked them a follow-up question that why did you choose this drug actually? And then there was a silence, a really awkward silence. And actually, they failed to justify the decisions that why had they chosen this drug, why this dose, why a particular decision was taken. So this here actually exposed a gap between the output and the understanding. So I felt that the AI is something that uh, at first, it was obviously the experience that AI should be banned, but in clinical pharmacy, that's not going to happen anytime sooner. We are expecting a lot of use, a lot of AI use in every discipline. But the problem here in clinical pharmacy was that it's just not the academic issue. It's actually concerned about the patient safety issue. So banning AI was not the answer for me. I thought that this is something that I am only going to force them. So I only wanted them to do something more with the AI. So I changed something. What was my intervention? I actually, in the next session, I asked them to do another case study. And this time, you're going to submit your forms to me. That means no AI initially. And then I also provided them alternatively some textbooks, some reference, small group discussions. I also, generated some certain groups so that they can take help from each other as well. So they get engaged into some kind of learning together. And then I added something more. I asked them that let's suppose that I am a human AI myself. Me being a teacher, let's suppose that I am an AI itself. So you are going to ask any question that pops up in your mind, you're going to ask me directly. So that actually encouraged reasoning in them. So even sometimes the answers were wrong, but they still managed to ask me. At first, they were shy, of course, but then due to my interaction with them, they started asking even the silliest questions. And those questions were even encouraged, at least if they had some kind of reasoning behind. So that is where I replaced some instant answers with some guided thinking. The engagement was very nice. But that was not all. Then I reintroduced the AI. This time, students revisited the same case using the AI. I allowed them the mobiles, and this time they started comparing their reasoning with the AI output. They identified what were the gaps, what were the areas which they didn't think upon at the first attempt. And that was actually my goal here to achieve. So I wanted them to understand that AI can be generalized most of the time. If the prompt is not good, of course, prompting is one aspect, but the problem is that AI sometimes do not consider all the aspects of the patient care. This is a complicated discipline that we are talking about, and we cannot expect any kind of mistakes or errors on our behalf because the person who is going to suffer is the patient himself, and that is human. So their ethics here, ethical concern is also involved here. So it's also another important point, the ethics related to AI. I also guided my students that please do not use the real patient data, especially their identifiable credentials, their name, their MR number. So you should de-identify the patient first, and then you can enter their data into the AI. That is also another ethical concern using the AI. Now, this time, AI became the refinement tool, the thing, the tool that can improve what you have done through your brainstorming, particularly, and not as a shortcut. So, this was the output. AI output versus their clinical thinking. So I know most of you are not from the medical background, but just giving you a general idea that when they prompted the AI gave a very generalized regimen. It told them you can use this class of drug, ACE inhibitors, you can use thiazides, you can use calcium channel blockers, right? But then the guideline was aligned, but it was very generic. AI missed some points, very critical points. Like, for example, what if the patient has some kidney disease? What if the patient has some renal impairment or liver impairment? The drugs become stuck in the body and they are not allowed to get out of the body. That increases the toxicity, increases the dosing concern. And that is where AI actually failed to do it in the first attempt. And when I asked them, when I became the human AI for them, they were asking me the same questions, but now I was giving them a very critical, response that if your patient is renally impaired, then you are going to not use this particular drug. Instead, you're going to use this drug. So, and in at this particular dose, and that is where I was successful in explaining that why is also important. You know, the most important thing here is as a clinician, we are producing clinicians. So the most important thing is taking the responsibility of whatever you are deciding. We are the decision makers. So AI do give us a plan. It gives us a guideline, but it fails to take the responsibility. Of course, it's an AI. We cannot say for to any person that, oh, this was a mistake at the part of the AI. Of course, we are the decision makers, so we have to justify the plan and we have to take the responsibility, and that is the most core point that I'm actually focusing on. So, what changed? The students they were able to have a stronger clinical reasoning. The students actually started questioning the AI output after the session. They were thinking that if whether AI using AI would actually help them uh, perfectly throughout their academic career or not. Definitely, most of the students were able to do that clinical reasoning thing and they started questioning AI. But of course, there were some students which still were pondering on the shortcuts, using the AI as an answer, but not as a tool. So there was a higher engagement in this whole activity that I created, and it took a lot of effort, it took a lot of time, but that was the key point that evaluation also changes with assessment also changes with the newer interventions in the AI age. We teachers have again greater responsibility. So the key shift was that AI is not going to be used as an answer, but it is going to be used as an assistant. So AI should assist clinical thinking, not replace clinical responsibility. And that's the most important point. So lastly, I would like to say that we should not assess what AI can write. We should assess what students can justify and take responsibility for. And for this, my most important assessment remains the verbal oral viva. I interact with my students and I give them non-graded and then graded assessments on taking the oral viva. It takes a lot of time and effort, but it always works for them. So I hope this experience gives you something. Thank you so much. Uh, Dr. Zia, if you have any
Yeah, I think, Umair,
questions.
you have done a very good combination with AI that actually justifies the human angle, and you have insisted upon. You actually, what you did, you made students more critically aware of the role of AI, and that is a very good way of increasing their AI literacy. And I think I have asked if people have anything to share after the panel is over. We'll open for the floor for the participants to sort of share their own similar experience. You may now stop share, Umair, and we will go on to Saima Majid. Saima Majid, very happy to have you.
Thank
And
you.
we have discovered that you are a very good resource, and so that we should bother you more often. You have 2 decades of experience as an educator. You are an associate professor of psychology with a strong academic and clinical background with 65 publication and research interests are like clinical psychopathology, substance use disorders, and ethical integration of artificial intelligence and academia. So we are very happy to have you. Over to you.
Thank
Over
you,
to
ma'am.
your use case. Ji.
Thank you so much. So, as Dr. Ruxana said about that, now we are talking about teaching, especially in the age of generative AI, which is really very difficult and challenging, of course. And so, I'm going to discuss it with reference to one of some of my courses, and I'm going to tell you about how I am doing this challenging job. So, first of all, I guess to start with a very clear and transparent AI use policy. We have discussed it so many times. So, rather, as Dr. Vaid said, rather than banning AI entirely, so I introduce my students about very explicitly course specific guidelines in the very start of the semester. Even from the very first day when I entered in the class, I introduced myself and then let the student introduce themselves after course outline. I explain I started explaining about AI policies of that course, particular course. In every course, their AI policies would be slightly different because every course requires a kind of different type of requirement in the form of assessments, in the form of submission of anything or that is required in that course. So I include everything in my syllabus and revisit it before major assignments again in the very first day, and then before submission of major assignments, I revisit the policies again with my students because it is not a kind of thing that they should understand or they must understand. No, we as teachers should be very, you can say, the responsibility is on our shoulders. Vague policies invite misinterpretation. So you should be very specific about the policy. You can also give the name of the tools that are supposed to use for AI, the tasks, the boundaries, and the student must know that exactly what is required and what is expected from them. So I frame it in a way not as a punishment. Okay, I will give you this punishment. I will give you F or no. I usually give them policies as a framework for their responsible engagement, because students really respond well when they really know about that why behind the rules. Sometimes they usually there is a conditioning or association between rules and punishment, but I use AI rules or policies as a framework, not the kind of punishment that I'm giving them. So usually in my courses where I encouraged AI, and there's a full permission of using AI, is usually in the topic exploration. Let's say they are making something, they want to make a research proposal, let's say, or they are asked to do some task, or so they are allowed to use AI for topic exploration, for any identify relevant themes, or initial you see for a kind of framework. So they can use it as a brainstorming tool, again for discussion. For example, if they have something in their mind, and they can ask from the AI tool, any AI generative tool, about the idea exploration, about the brainstorming. And then I very much encourage in my class to use generative AI tools to clarify their concepts. Of course, as in some other workshop, I also told you about my how I generate a kind of personal GPT for them, for my class. For my every class, I develop personal GPT for them, and then I share link with them so they can use, and I really know that they are using the my personal developed chat GPT or any GPT tool. So it means that the sources there which I have submitted, which I have uploaded, are authentic, so they can use it for clarification of their concepts. And even I encourage my students to use them for practice quizzes, which some of my colleagues are not agree with, because according to them, if they already generate quizzes, and then they get to know the answers, and maybe we are also using the same tool and generating quizzes. So I am, in my point of view, it is act like a practice paper or past paper, like we all using in our O levels, A levels, or metric. So if I encourage student to use those slides, that files that I have shared with them, to generate some quizzes, because in this way they can learn. They learn through this, and they can clarify their concepts. Some of the places where I ask them not to use AI because it is not permitted there, especially in classroom activities. With advent of AI, I put lot of efforts to make home classroom activities. I design homework worksheets for them, and for group activities, for individual activities within the class. So now most of my focus for assessments, both graded and not graded activities within the class. So if I'm giving them anything within the class, so they are not going to use it AI. Their phone, their laptops are just away from them, and then they use their brain, they use their team members to discuss with them, and then they do that activity. So the second thing which I am not allowing them to use AI is homework worksheets. For example, if I'm giving them worksheets, so they have to do it with the help of, not with the help of AI, but to their own understanding, the conceptual understanding. For that, I have to design first in homework worksheets in a way that they should use, excuse me, they should use their brain, not they should use their critical abilities, analytical skills, not they should not depend upon the AI. Then there are graded assignments. For all graded assignments, it is important not to use AI, but they should use their actual learning, comprehension, and their own understanding about that. And of course, the research papers. If I'm going to say them or their graded assignment regarding writing any essay or any paper, they have to use it, their own brain, their own understanding about it. And even there is a permission of use AI in some sections. The important point in my policy is declaration statement. So if they are using any AI, tool, or at one place they are using it AI, they have to declare it, they have to mention it, that which AI tool they are going to use, exactly how it was used in the task, and how the student critically engage with the AI output. In this way, I am basically inculcating ethical and responsible use of AI, because we cannot stop them by using it, we cannot ban them, but rather, according to FCCU policies, we are basically encourage them to use AI, but of course with responsibly and ethically as an assistant, not as the entire dependence upon that. So this slide shows one of the course policy of my research methods 1305 course policy. So this is a policy which is embedded in my course outline, and in the 1 to 2 3 lines you can see that I'm encouraging them that yes, it is a responsible use of AI which is encouraging you to enhance understanding, critical thinking, engagement with the course material. However, AI must be ethical, transparent, and consistent with academic integrity standards. So now I'm giving it the permitted use of AI like reading support, conceptual clarity, practice quizzes, topic exploration, and idea development. So this is regarding my 305 course, in which they are supposed to submit their final assignment or final project as a research synopsis. So it is important that they can use it as a brainstorming purpose for even for topic exploration, but they are not supposed to use it for assignments and report writing, final exams and assessments, classroom activities, and any kind of misrepresentation which is not allowed. For example, if they're saying this is my own original task and they have used the AI, so they have to declare it, because I tell them and I mention it my policies that any use of AI must comply with the institution academic honesty policy, and they have to mention it that where they use it. Again, as this workshop is about how we are using AI, or how we are basically maintaining academic integrity. So policy is not enough. We as educator, as teacher of higher education, we have to develop, we have to redesign our assessment itself, because it is our responsibility that students should not depend entirely on the AI, but they should use it as a tool. So now a kind of taking home work, written assignments, mostly I really leave that things, and I put all my effort of redesigning all my assessment, which is more task based, which is more in classroom activities, which is more paper and pencil test. All my quizzes are, all my exams are paper pencil tests. They are not, I haven't uploaded on Moodle or on LMS, but I always take it in the class. So although definitely it is taking a lot of time, and but yes, it is my duty to provide them such a platform that where they can use their brain, they can use their creative skills. So now I shifted more assessments into the classroom, paper and pencil activities I just told you, and in-person viva as an oral presentation. So for example, if I have given them any assignment, they have written that assignment, and then after that assignment there must be one, it could be an oral viva, and I ask questions and then they give the answer. So it means even if they use AI, they can now they understand that where and why they have used AI and what are the real concept behind that assignment. And some of the time I take them in the form of posters presentations or PowerPoint presentation within the class. Second or third most important thing which I have included in my courses is application-based case scenarios assessment. Because in my some courses like forensic psychology and clinical psychology, because in clinical psychology we always interact with the patients and our clients. So there are so many hypothetical cases that I can present to my students, and then they analyze the case, they apply their knowledge, and then they propose solutions. And of course reasoning, reasoning is really important. So we usually do what, this is a case example from one of my, that is forensic psychology case. So Ali is 19 years old, male, convicted of motorcycle theft. It is a case scenario, and then I ask student to do what, discuss how you would structure early rehabilitation using the risk need responsivity model, because this is a correctional psychology as well. So I asked student, because we have already discussed this model in the class, and then I make the entire class divided into small groups, and then I provided different cases to different groups. So each group has a different case with them. They will read that case, they will discuss with each other, and then they will design a rehabilitation plan for that particular client or particular prisoner or suspect. So in this way, now what they are using the classroom concepts that has been discussed already in the class. Now they are taking that knowledge and information from the class and now putting them together to solve the problem. So they discuss the cases, then they brainstorm it, they make a plan, and then they discuss in front of class. After discussion, what I really do, after discussion of all these cases within the group, then that particular small group will discuss the entire case to the larger group, to the class. So they will present that case in front of class. In this way, they are not using AI, they are using their brain, they are using their creative skills, they are using their analytic abilities. Now they are putting their knowledge into the real life problem solving skills, and then make a reasoning, because students, the class are also encouraged to ask questions from them, and then I ask questions regarding anything which I regarding reasoning, or why to plan this, why not this, if you use this concept, it may be giving you a more real life problem solving. Let's say the second case is drug related female offender. So there are different type of cases that I presented in the class, and student will look into that and then present it in front of class. The skills that AI cannot simply generate, that is creative thinking, that is creativity, that is analytic reasoning, and of course our ethical responsibility. For that particular thing, I put most of my assessment converted into classroom discussions as well, because active knowledge construction के लिए it is very important to debate, the peer dialogue, and the structural discussion requires students to basically they articulate their positions, they respond to the counter arguments. So in two of my classes, one is forensic psychology, another is clinical psychology and psychopathology, it is really, there are so many ethical dilemmas in our field. And usually what I do, I presented those ethical dilemmas to my students, and then I divided those into the two opponents, a kind of attorneys, one is prosecutor and another is defendant, and there are some ethical dilemmas, and then they discuss, and then they counter dialogue with each other. Here what I am going to produce, or I'm going to inculcate them, is their verbal fluency, then they articulate their complex ideas clearly. They're of course not only saying that I am right. Intellectual humility is also one of the important thing that we should have as learned individuals, that we that not only our ideas are the best, but the other thinking, other ideas, other point of view is also important. There's civic reasoning, engaging respectfully with diverse perspective, spontaneous synthesis, connecting ideas on the fly without a script. And because AI is always providing you a script, so when you are giving anything in the class, anything in the groups, anything as a competing groups, then they will use their own creativity, their own analytic skills, their own creative skills to put their ideas and then present it in a very, you can say, convincing manner. So this is one of the ethical dilemma from one of my clinical psychology class. It is a case scenario which I give it to my entire class, and I said, okay, divide yourself into two groups, and one group will be the prosecutor, will be, and the other group will be the defendant. So let's say there's a scenario, a clinical psychologist is providing therapy to 22 years old university student, because we always have a idea that where our patient because they confide on us. So how the confidentiality definitely is very important in our clinical psychology or psychology subject. But there is, again, there is our duty to protect. For example, if the patient is talking about suicide or homicide or providing or inflicting pain to anyone else. So now it is a kind of ethical dilemma. Should we remain this information confidential, private, or whether we should give it to any authority or family, discuss it with the family member or that person to whom our patient is thinking to inflicting pain. So this is a whole scenario which is creating ethical dilemma. And now I'm not allowing them to go and consult AI, but I'm putting all these things in within the classroom, and then they contemplate and then they discuss. Because let's say before this case, we have already discussed about ethical implications, ethical considerations and principles regarding that particular course. This is one of another example which of my assessment, because I have entirely redesigned my assessment based upon the challenges that AI has just put forward. So they're practical projects now, no more only writing about the assignments, but they are making some practical projects, poster presentations of those projects. For example, in my abnormal psychology class, I give them a project of making a leaflet or a kind of brochure about creating awareness about different psychological disorders. So those brochures are also encouraged to write something to reduce the stigma regarding mental health and providing awareness. So what it is providing, it is giving you a kind of visual communication. The students synthesize findings into a very clear, organized posters or brochures or leaflets, and then I further that is followed by a presentation. I invited many other of my colleagues, and it is an open invitation to other colleagues come and ask questions from students about that poster. So that is research posters in one of my class, that is brochures and leaflet in the abnormal and psychopathology class and clinical psychology class. So now the students are not only putting their information and knowledge into the form of leaflets and brochures, but also providing information to the live audience. So if other students or colleagues are coming and asking questions, so they are providing reasoning, they are providing them information. So in this way, I'm putting, if even if they are taking information from the AI and the class or the combination of both, they know what they are trying to say, they know the reasoning behind it, they know how to present it to the general public. So this is example of poster presentation from one of my course policies. So for example, if every student will make a poster and then they will present it, presentation expectation, they have to present it first and then they explain the main elements, or if there is any question answer, then they have to answer that questions. You can also see the in bold that I have again retreat the my policy that use of generative AI tools for designing assistance is allowed, but research content must be the student own work. So this is an again a kind of effort that even if they are using it, because there's so many wonderful tools that AI is giving us for making posters, and I must encourage my students and my colleagues to use that tools for poster, for tools for even for PowerPoint presentations. That wonderful tools available. But of course, the content in that presentation should be our own, should be research based, should be a kind of showing our effort. So because I believe that when assessment focus more on process, student will invest more. Because and I'm for me the end product is important, but the entire process is more important. So I always encourage my student, discuss with my student that your effort is far more important for me rather than just the final product. The final product could be very you can say will be very organized, put together, but if your work is not showing and your effort is not showing, your creative skills are not showing, then the end product is of no use. So there should be less reliance on AI shortcuts. So we as instructor could encourage our student to engage with the content with the help of so many things which Dr. Ubaid discussed, which I discussed, and of course with other. And I'm very sure that most of our instructors are using very different things and activities, so our students put more effort in that. So they can take more greater ownership for their class. So AI is not just the end of academic integrity as initially we may think in 2022. I was also in the same board when we were thinking as educator, even as parent, oh, this is the end of creativity, this is the end of everything. But I guess with more AI literacy, with more effort on the part of educators, we can make it as a assisting tool. We can make it as a personal tutor. We can make it as a guide, not the entire dependence upon that. So I take with this last message for instructors and administrators that we have to establish a very clear course specific AI use policies. Because if we say students should know, students should understand, no, this is not the case. We have to be very specific. AI need declaration. If we are using AI statements along, before encouraging to your student, I think we as teacher can declare whenever we are using AI. We can redesign our assessments for authentic learning, shift more in-class tasks, oral components like Vivas, presentations, project-based work, question answer. It will increase student engagement. And then prioritize thinking over output, because the process is really important, how the student is thinking, and then ended up with the solution. So frame AI as an opportunity because we have to use it, because it is really a powerful and wonderful tool. So it is one of the strengths that we can using it. We should use it. We should encourage our student use it, but responsibly and ethically. And the challenges, of course, for our is assessment, and that we can always a kind of redesign it to make it more interactive, to make it more powerful, and to so our student cognitive abilities should not be hampered. Thank you. This is from my side.
Yeah. Thank you, Saima. There were so many use cases where I wanted to tell you to stop and walk us through that one single point. This was more like a very comprehensive presentation of the work that you do with AI in your courses. In future, what we are trying to do is just pick up one simple aspect that you do. And in this, I think if you had picked up brainstorming and just walked us through different types of brainstorming and questions that you do, that would have, and I would have called you every month to pick up one theme from here because you're doing a tremendous amount of work. I'm sure, like so many Umaid is doing and others are doing. But the purpose of this, I think, I'm very happy that you have given us an overview, and this will be very helpful for the others taking, use cases forward, because there are at least, if I'm not wrong, at least 20 use cases that one could make out of your presentation for the work that everybody is doing. And so I encourage later presenters to look at one distinct area and then develop that. And I think, Umaid, I think you did a very good job by concentrating on that. You, Saima, you did the whole landscape as a teacher. And I think that gave us the bigger picture, the context of where the so many smaller use cases. I would love to hear from you about the self quizzes. I would love to hear from you about assessment only, as a discussion only as an assessment. And how did that change with different iterations around the classroom, just discussion, and something like that, because that then you go deeper into everything. But will keep you in mind for academic integrity and talk of using AI. But I would encourage you to sort of pick up, one or two things from here, and then in different sessions, please come again and again to different sessions, and I'll probably invite you to talk about one specific thing. Thank you so much. Now over to Adil. And Adil, you are pressed for time. We had hoped for a 7 to 10 minute by each panelist and then a discussion. And we have seen some comments, and you've got a lot of laudatory comments, Saima, rightfully so. It's a very good, a presentation, and you gave us the whole landscape, and that's very, very powerful and food for thought. Adil Amar is an associate professor of media and communication at FC, and his experience is not just as an academic. He has worked in roles of a reporter, producer, senior producer, and news management at news channels, and he has worked in well-known media organizations like Channel 4, UK, ITV, UK, Geo News, Din News, and so on and so forth. So over to you, Adil. Adil, you were traveling back to Lahore. Are you in Lahore? Are you still en route in your car?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Ruxana. So I'm parked somewhere. Quickly, I'll share 2, 3 examples from my classes of media studies, because we teach media studies and we extensively use all these technologies. So what I have done over the period of time from past 1 year, I have changed all my course outlines, and I have included different kind of um, different kind of am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, but there's another person, I think, Mr. Abdullah Sumro.
Okay. Okay, so we use from Chat GPT to Claude, and now Claude Code is a new sensation. Jasper, Copy AI, Runway ML, a lot of other, like Nano Banana is the most important for us, and Midjourney in 11 labs, because we teach media. So what I have done over the period of time, instead of penalizing students, I have included a specific AI platform in every module of my courses. If I'm teaching documentary making or television production, so I have specifically chosen a platform for every module. So what made me do that? Because a year back, once I have asked my students to write a news story, and what she did, she brought a very good news story to me. And I asked just one question: can you walk me through how you verified these facts? And she was really silent at the moment, and she didn't know how to respond that question, because she used Chat GPT. And at that time, I thought, let's collaborate and we use all these technologies together. So we extensively use them in the class. So I'll take one example from my news reporting class. So what I do in my news reporting class, I have to confront something uncomfortable. That is the traditional inverted pyramid, which is the basic of news. So which deal with who, what, when, where, why. So, and now AI can produce that thing in just 4 seconds. So what exactly I'm teaching, that was a very serious question for me. So what I did, I actually designed around a framework called RAG, a retrieval augmented generation. So I know that sounds a little bit technical, but let me tell you what it is in simple words. Instead of asking AI to write about a topic or develop a news story from its journal training, because AI has the data already, and that data might be outdated as well. It's not the updated. You force it to read your document first. So what does that mean? That you develop documents, you develop different kind of reports, and you give the raw data to like your interview transcripts, the government reports, or the reports that are already published in the newspapers, and you build a library for your specific AI tool. So it becomes a tool for formatting your journalism, not replacing it. That means students are gathering data first, and then they are feeding that data to that specific AI platform. And then they develop a specific kind of a prompt in order to get answers from their specific AI tools. So here is a specific assignment, instead of asking students to write a story about local inflation, what I have asked them to build a library first. They interviewed 3, 4 experts, and they uploaded those interviews, the transcripts of those interviews. They downloaded several news reports from different newspapers. They also uploaded those news reports into that AI platform. And then at the top, they use AI to write that story. So the moment they did this, what they found that was very interesting for all of us. They instantly stopped thinking of AI as a journalist or as a tool that can actually write their assignments. They actually started to thinking of themselves as a journalist because they gathered all the data and they use AI as a typesetter. So in that way, they were doing their work as well, and they were actually catering the ethical issues which we are facing in academia about the use of AI, and they were using it very creatively. That was very different relationship which we experienced in our news reporting class, and it also solved a very critical question or very critical problem which we often talk, and we know it, the AI hallucination, where AI confidently present a fabricated fact. So those facts were not fabricated. All the facts were woven around the data we actually fed to the AI platform. Similar kind of technique I used in my research course, in my fundamental research course at undergrad. I took a different approach here. I used AI to teach content analysis, specifically a technique called semantic similarity. So what I did, I created an exercise. I asked my students to gather like 10 news headlines covering the same real world event. So what they did, they sourced those headlines from different outlets across the world and from different countries. So when they use AI to map those headlines, what does that map mean here? It means that the AI convert each headline into a set of numbers, kind of a vector. So that represent its meaning as well. Then it placed each headline on what we call the latent space in content analysis. So what happened here? Headlines that take opposite perspective sits far apart, and the headlines that were actually didn't take the opposite perspective, they were at the separate end. So what does that mean? When students visualize that map, something powerful they experience. They could literally see the clusters of Western media in one corner and global South perspective in the other corner. So that was another kind of a creative approach I took with the AI. So I usually call it forensic media analysis. So that means in that case, you actually can control the data training bias as well in AI. So here, what I want to make a point is that uh, there are so many platforms. It's up to us how creatively we can use. And when it comes to the question of ethics and accountability, it is very important that privacy should be in the consideration. I always have a non-negotiable rule in my reporting class that we never upload a raw interview transcript to a public AI tool. Never ever. Because when if we do that, our source, our personal information, or their names, their location, or their story, it get ingested into the system's memory. So that is kind of a privacy consideration we always keep in mind. And students also learn about that, because initially 2 years back, a year back instead, students were only using chat gpt or other AI platforms to ask question or to ask them to write this or write that. But now they, in my classes, they are using it differently. The second issue is alignment. So in AI, it means, does the machine goal match human values? So we have the risk here in news, especially. Let's say a media platform, AI platform, specifically designed GPT that writes the news. If it is optimized for engagement, let's say, for the Facebook, it will naturally drift towards sensationalism, because sensationalism is selling more on online media. So in that case, it will actually outrage to get more clicks, and it will not be well balanced. So in that case, we need to look into the fact that whenever we use any AI technology, we actually train it the way we want to use it. And we need to feed our own data to our specific GPTs or specific AI platforms. And on the basis of that data, we should use these technologies. I guess these two examples are enough, and I guess I have done justice with my time. Am I right, Dr. Ruxana?
Yeah. Hey, one example was good enough. We were looking at just one example, and that would have been perfect. And then we would have a reason to call you and Saima again and again, because you have so much to share. It seems even Umaid, I think, has experimented a lot with AI in his classroom, and there are many others, experiences to share. Uh, Shazia asked about that there is what AI free tools are there. Shazia, very simple, just type it into Google search or a Google simple platform and ask it what are the top 5 tools and what are they best for. There are different AI tools that are differently effective for different tasks. So if you are just to do brainstorming, there's one tool, and there are lots of free tools out there. And they offer you tokens before you start paying for tokens, but the tokens are sort of replaced every few hours or every 24 hours. And so I use AI a lot, and I have at least 6 different AI tools open on my laptop, and I use different ones for different purposes. Just ask AI, what are the top 5 AI tools and what are they good for? And you'll get the answer. And they keep changing, by the way. The tools, they are in a race. And I'm now increasingly seeing Claude and Grok sort of take over the landscape with ChatGPT and Gemini sometimes in the first 5 and sometimes in the first 3 or so on. So the positions keep changing. There's no static over there. And so please keep asking AI. I have noticed AI is a very good tutor as well. So use it for that. There is that panel. We are very, very thankful to Saima, to Umaid, and to you, Adil, that you were traveling, you stopped en route, and you sort of took time for us. I am also going to urge Umaid, Saima, and Adil, you to start writing a blog, which we are trying to sort of encourage, so that whatever you are doing, one case that you are doing, one example of AI use and how you polished it, like Saima, you have sort of polished so many things that you kept on doing, and you have polished them along the way, and I could see what you had done with iterations of the same model. So something like that, one piece on a blog which goes out for, is there for all to see as a standard. So, Med, you have something that's ready made for that. You just put it into text. Saima, I'm going to ask you to pick up one area, and I'll send you the template for the blog. So how many words? And if you do that, we are on our way to scholarship of teaching and learning with what we do and what we know and the deal, of course. You came with 2 examples. One would have been good enough. You know what? It's giving me a brain fry. So much information out there. And so when you read or when you listen, then you don't know which one to go for. And I am very, very happy with what you have all done, and very thankful for coming forward with your comments. If there's somebody who'd want to make a comment, please unmute. We are happy to talk to each other.
Yeah, I
G,
want to make a comment here, Dr.
G,
Ruxana.
G.
That someone asked about using free AI tools. So my
Yeah.
recommendation is use paid tools. They will give you a different kind of aspect. So if you spend some money, So you are going to experience a different kind of aspects of AI.
Yeah.
So
But may I also suggest that if you do not want to go for a paid one, ask the tool itself, what can I do and what do I need to do to get a better responses that are more academic, more evidence based, or more, whatever you want, and more professional. And I can assure you that it will give you a list of things to do that you need to feed into the tool to get a better answer, paid or unpaid. That's one of the best ways of working with AI. And you call them anchor documents that you post into the settings. And those anchor documents or prompts you can keep on using for different types of work. And I have noticed that they give very, very good results. I haven't tried paid versions, and I'm sure paid versions are definitely give a far superior response. But there are some, for different purposes. Notebook, I think, is unbeatable. Notebook LM for many research-based things that we do, for the Prezi we do, and there's no problem with that it hallucination because the sources are yours. You put in the sources, and it gives you feedback on basis of that sources in multiple formats. You can have a podcast, and that is very good for instructors. You can make a mind map, a podcast, an infograph, a PowerPoint. From all those materials, you can ask it to, produce something. And those materials could be your. I really liked your idea, Deal, of putting in your work into the AI before you ask a question. And I think that's making it very, very personal and using it as a learning partner and making your own work. It definitely would be your own work. So if there's no other comment, we are very happy with the sessions. Those of you that have responded are saying 100% satisfied. Saima, your presentation got a lot of wows. And Umaid, you have developed a very good, a case study of your own case. Yes, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, ma'am, just a quick comment on the use of AI tools. In my experience, of course, most of us may not be able to purchase the premium versions. So I have experienced that the most common tools, for example, the ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and Copilot, Grok, they all are used specifically for their specific tasks. So what I do is I'm just sharing my experience. I think that ChatGPT's latest version is the most intelligent version, and the DeepSeek also works very well. So keep the credits of ChatGPT specified for my specific intelligent and required work, And if I am more concerned about generating some images, I go for Gemini. If I'm interested in fact checking and real-time data, I go for Grok.
Yeah,
And same, if I have just going to use it for regular purpose, Copilot is just fine for that.
perfect. Yeah.
So that's just my personal experience that I wanted to share.
Yeah, excellent. And I think if you want to ensure that your tokens don't run out, ask Chat the AI, what can I do? What can I do differently to preserve my tokens? And incidentally, there are ways of preserving your tokens so you don't run out of them. So there are, and ask ChatGPT. And like I said, it's the best teacher. So you ask it, it will give you an answer. And I have developed, for example, I asked that I want to don't have to feed my persona and the sort of results I want. So what should I do to get the answer that is applicable to my requirement for my level of job? And so I said, ask me what should I do, and it told me, give me your CV, give me your work, give me some of your publications. And it did a Prezi, and it stored it in its and say store it in the settings, so that every time I respond to you, I have your level of functioning or cognitive skills in my mind, and I can respond accordingly. And that is also very helpful. So there are very small ways in which you can make the us, like I said, use AI as your teacher. Just ask it a question and use it. I actually did a recent that make me a free course from all the free courses out there that prepares me for 2026 use of AI, the latest use of AI, because remember, use of AI is changing very fast. And it gave me a list of free courses and told me, and it's a long list of what to learn in 2026 to be current with AI. So those are the ways I would encourage you to use AI. So thank you so much.